We had 7% market share at the time. We were competing against a giant, and we followed them and branched off and become a little bit better, and then they would catch up, and then we'd branch off and become a little bit better. And over the last 28 years, we've added over 20 companies since I've been there.
Wow.
So they moved me around about 5 or 6 times, and kind of like a Lewis and Clark sort of guy, here, grab the axe and start chopping it down.
You're ready to go.
And then they put me somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I've been blessed to be there 28 years. It's kind of a curse and a blessing being in the same place for a long time. There's a lot of HR manuals out there that I can say, I knew about that. But anyway, it's a great company. We started like just under 30 million, and we did 2.7 billion last year.
Billion.
So.
Welcome back to Noob School. This is where we interview successful business owners, and we dial it back to the beginning and figure out what they did to make their revenue grow. All right, well, welcome back to Noob School. This week we have Bill Haun. Bill is with ZOLL Medical, and ZOLL makes a very important product, I would say. Why don't you tell us about it?
Well, this starts my 28th year with ZOLL. I feel like I started when I was 24 years old, and 2 years out of the citadel selling surgical equipment in Alabama, and came to ZOLL in '95. Dr. Paul Zoll's the first man to ever externally pace the heart in 1957 and externally defibrillate the heart as well. He won the equivalent of the Nobel Peace Prize for medicine, and kind of a shorter, meek man, and didn't want it to be called ZOLL Medical. It was ZMI Technologies at the time. In the late 80s, started at Cambridge, Massachusetts with 4 guys at a cocktail party, raised about 800 grand. And then I started in '95, and we'd go around pacing ourselves and, saying it was tolerable to do it externally. And then we added a defibrillator with it. And then, we did away with paddles and just went pads, and just kind of, we had 7% market share at the time. We were competing against a giant, and we followed them and branched off and become a little bit better, and then they would catch up, and then we'd branch off and become a little bit better. And over the last 28 years, we've added over 20 companies since I've been there.
Wow.
So they moved me around about 5 or 6 times, and kind of like a Lewis and Clark sort of guy, here, grab the axe and start chopping it down.
You're ready to go.
And then they put me somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I've been blessed to be there 28 years. It's kind of a curse and a blessing being in the same place for a long time. There's a lot of HR manuals out there that I can say, I knew about that. But anyway, it's a great company. We started like just under 30 million, and we did 2.7 billion last year. Billion, yeah.
So these things, to break it down, these are the things we see on the wall that say AED on them, and people use them to defibrillate people that are in cardiac arrest or something like that, right?
Correct. It's apples and oranges when you're talking about sudden cardiac arrest versus a heart attack.
Yeah.
Right. Sudden death is 387,000 people a year. Hank gathers limb bias. They need to be defibrillated and good CPR.
And those 2 guys weren't. Is that right?
They were in sudden death, so they were dead.
And then no one got to them in time to zap them.
Or do good CPR, correct.
Okay.
And so a heart attack is you're conscious, it's plumbing. You go to the cath lab, you get a balloon in, a stent or scaffolding, and we revascularize the heart. But you're conscious the whole time. Mm-hmm. Sudden death, you're really dead. You need good CPR and to shock them. So we also make them for ambulances, helicopters, and crash carts in hospitals as well. So I've been on that side, EMS side, and now I sell through what we call a force multiplier. I sell through distribution. So I have about 68 distributors within 2 states that sell for me. So, the better I train them and the better understanding they have it, I can sell rubber dog shit if I have enough people selling it.
Your current job, this is a very cool thing, a very important thing you're selling, and you've got 68 different distribution companies that work for you, basically selling these products.
Correct.
Okay.
So they have other products, and my goal is to get them to focus on mine as much as they can. And I'll give them bluebirds every now and again. So I'll run across the citadel grad. They'll have a company, and he'll buy 30 here, 30 there. And I just assign it to a distributor, and they just all of a sudden just get a nice sale.
Just to make sure everyone knows what a bluebird is, I bet a lot of people don't. A bluebird is when the sales rep, in this case Bill, someone says, "Hey, I want to place an order for a bunch of these units," and Bill doesn't want to sell it direct. He wants to sell through his channel, so he decides who I'm going to give it to. And usually that's going to be someone who's been working hard for you, I imagine.
Correct.
Or maybe a Citadel person.
Right. Or, somebody I want to get started, right? And, I hate to keep a favor file, but those are good to keep. And they say, "Well, why didn't you give me this?" I was like, "Well, wait a second, I gave you this one and this one." So you got to, I don't care what my kids fight as long as they're fighting for my product for the same deal.
Right. So, okay. So you sell these devices, and I'm just curious, when does a company or a business have to have one on premises?
Well, the AHA says that, they should be in every public building, right? And we're starting to put them a lot in police cars. So in the last 3 fiscal years, last year I sold 1,800 to North Carolina Highway Patrol through a distributor. So every North Carolina Highway Patrol car will have one. 18 months ago, we sold Georgia. We did Florida and Alabama. So, my philosophy is where you live shouldn't determine whether you live. So, if we get them in police cars and things like that, because sudden cardiac arrest doesn't discriminate, whether it's a new friend, a mother, father, brother, sister, we want to get them back into tax-paying status, right?
Yeah.
But so as far as government recommending them, it depends on the state. Like in California, any job site over $50,000 has to have an AED on place. But that's California.
So currently, just to understand, kind of level set where you are today, you've been with the rise of this company from relatively startup to almost $3 billion a year. You're selling something really important, and it's just growing, right? I mean, eventually they'll be in most homes, I would think.
Yeah, 70% of sudden deaths happen at home, but they're unwitnessed. Typically early in the morning when you're supine or laying flat in the bed and you get up and blood rushes. That's typically when it happens, and they're not around at home. There is a market for it, but again, if it's unwitnessed and nobody's there to use it, so it's not going to be, if you don't have a spouse there, somebody to witness it, it doesn't matter.
So I'm asking this for a friend, but if there was an older gentleman getting up in the morning, should they kind of creep up out of bed?
Yeah. I mean, hey, when it's your time, it's your time. Hopefully there's a defibrillator there,
But I mean, why don't more people have that? What do they cost? Like the entry-level home version, what does that cost?
You're looking at a state contract level, about $1,350, $1,400.
So for that much money, you could have something at home that could save your life or your spouse's life. Why don't more people have them?
Well, we actually make a wearable defibrillator. So one that you wear and monitors you all the time, and it'll shock you within 40 seconds. And that's typically post-cardiac arrest. And I was fortunate to be on that team, and we started that team. We added LifeCore in 2007. We bought them, I think, for $7 million. And it was me and 2 other guys. And now there's 65 regional managers, 475 reps, and does about $800 million a year.
Right.
And so you wear a defibrillator when you have an MI or a heart attack and your heart has a chance to remodel. Think of it like a cast on your leg or your arm. As your heart remodels, you have a chance to have that ejection fraction pushed up. So like a woman that has a baby, sometimes their ejection fraction falls down. Back in the day, they would put an ICD in them, a $90,000 box. And 2 weeks later, her ejection fraction would be 70, and she didn't need the box. So it's kind of a bridge to an ICD, and you rent it from us. So $3,000 a month, and you give it back and we rent it again. So it's a great model, about a little over 70% margin.
Well, it's a fascinating subject.
But it saves 3 lives a day.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I'm glad you're in it. But let's, for the sake of the noobs and for the sake of selling, let's back up to when you got started. Of course, we all know from your shirt you went to the Citadel.
Yes, sir.
Great choice. How did you choose the Citadel?
I'd still be a junior if I went to Clemson with like 3 masters and 2 PhDs. And my younger brother's a PhD and a lawyer. But I chose Citadel to play football. And but that ended real quick. I ruptured my spleen after the 4th game. Steak night, trying to block a field goal, got speared and cracked 2 ribs, collapsed my lung, ruptured my spleen, got a little bit off my pancreas, and I was in the hospital 31 days. And this
Whoa.
goes back to why I chose sales. Is the surgeon and I became really close, Dr. Bobby Cathcart, and he was our team doctor at the Citadel. And I wanted to go to medical school. He goes, no, Billy. He goes, you like to fish and you like to play golf. You're going to go into medical sales. And I'm like, oh, okay. And as luck would have it, a medical sales company did come through the Citadel recruiting.
Yeah.
And they were only going to hire 2 people. And they hired the 2 people and they didn't hire me. And I went down to University of Georgia and I was going to enroll in their MBA program. And Mom calls me and says, hey, you got a FedEx package. You got the job. And so I started with American Hydrosurgical May 13th with 3 Citadel grads, 14 of us, 14 from West Point, 6 from Annapolis that had just got out of the Gulf War, and then 4 experienced medical sales reps. And we were there 7 weeks. Took a test every day. You made below 90 on the test. You had to take it again. If you failed it, you got sent home. And then they said, you're going to Houston, you're going to Dallas, you're going to San Francisco, you're going to Chicago. They sent me to Mobile, Alabama. And that was, I'll never forget it. I moved to Mobile, get in my apartment. I go to Walmart, I buy a 27-inch TV, a blow-up mattress, and 2 plastic chairs, right? And I don't know if you know about the weather in Mobile, but it rains. The drops are about this big.
Yeah.
And I turn on that TV and, no cable working. I lean back in the chair, both legs break. I sit there like this and tears just roll down my eyes like, hey, what have I done? I'm 8 hours away from home, but it was quite the experience. And we were selling laparoscopic instrumentation in the OR. And we went from 500,000 to 13 million and were bought for 51 million.
Nice.
And I got wind of it about 2 months before the sale and came to ZOLL.
Okay.
So, and then I started with ZOLL in 95.
Okay, so just backing up a little bit for the sake of the noobs, you had an event happen in college, a physical event, football field, that kind of exposed you to a doctor and he exposed you to medical sales and what could be possible, and you got interested
Correct.
in that. Which again, I talk about this almost every episode, but that's very important. The people that I see that are the most successful and happy being part of success, they have some reason to be where they are.
Right.
They didn't just I got a job, selling yarn or something. I mean, they have a reason to be there. So you had a reason to be there. You got there. Did that company just hire people from military schools?
The first company did, right?
Wow.
It's Cameron Brooks is a military placement, top 2%. And, they kind of did a crapshoot with the Citadel guys, and they put us in Tallahassee, New Orleans, and Mobile. And subsequently, one of those went on to go into BUDS for Navy SEALs, and the other one went into the Secret Service after they got bought. And I went on to ZOLL.
Okay.
So
how did you? So you had a good experience, even though Mobile was tough getting started. You learned kind of how to sell in the emergency room or the OR. And you liked medical sales.
Yes, sir.
And so how did you get the ZOLL job?
So recruiter called and I wanted to know who the best reps were in the country. And so she gave me those names and I called them and they asked who I was interviewing with and they told me exactly how to talk to him and what was important to him. And I remember what that guy told me. I said, what did you make last year? And he told me, and I'm like, heck yeah, I can do this. And he actually was in the territory where the manager was the rep. And so the manager came and I missed the first interview by an hour because I was on Alabama time and not Georgia time. So that was, and I called every Greg Williams in the book and, wrote thank you letters to every Greg Williams in the book. But I got another round to come back in about 2 weeks. I walk into Columbia Airport for an interview and I just start laughing. I'm like, I am so sorry. And I sit down and he goes, sell me this pen. That was back in 95. And, I looked at him and I was like, well, what do you like in a pen? And he's like, holy cow. Like I answered the question that nobody seems to get right the first time. He goes, come with me. And we don't even sit down for an interview and we go on a call. And it was this Calhoun County EMS and there wasn't a ZOLL sold in this whole state. And he did this most impeccable demo. And they're like, oh, really hot and ready to buy it. And then right at the end of the meeting, I said, do you know anybody else like-minded like y'all that would be interested in this? And he gave me 3 more EMS directors right there. And that just sealed it for him. And But 2 weeks later, he's like, I can't believe I hired you. But God bless him. He passed away of ALS too. So the surgeon that got me into medical sales died of ALS. So he saved my life. The guy that gave me life to save lives died of ALS. So it's just a horrible disease. But Greg Williams, thinking about that yesterday, the 28 years, it's a tribute to him.
Wow.
So, and those guys that I told you about I hired, they were hired by him as well. So I've hired 11 people and 9 are still there.
Yeah.
And they all live in Greenville. So it's pretty cool.
It is cool. There's something about that story that I've seen, happen before is you obviously, when you showed up to talk to him and he said something about selling the pen, you weren't nervous. You just you were yourself.
Right.
And then when you went on that call with him, you had the guts at the end to ask for some references, which he didn't tell you to do. And I always tell people when you're on these interviews to be the best version of yourself and don't worry about it. Because if you don't get this one, you're going to get the next one. I mean, there's so much opportunity, particularly to be an employee these days,
Right.
that you should be yourself. And that way you'll find that Greg Williams connection.
Right.
Right. We're not just looking for just a job. You want that connection where they're going to get you in kind of your quirky sense of humor or your gutsiness or whatever, and want that on the team.
Yeah, he did. He was probably our most trusted guy and just an awesome individual.
Yeah. Well, your man Rob Greer, was one of the first Citadel cadets we recruited, and one reason I liked him was he was coordinating with me to come recruit on campus.
Right.
So he was my contact. And then I get down there, and he's the first guy who signed up for an interview. And I'm like, aren't you the same? He goes, yes, sir. And he'd asked me all these questions about the company and our future and what I was looking for in a cadet. So he already knew the answers to the test. Right. And so I was just like, well, you don't need to interview. Here's your offer. We'll take you. Because I knew he was our kind of people.
Yeah, he's awesome. I love Rob Greer.
Yeah.
I always thought the world of him.
Yeah.
I've known him since Citadel summer camp, so I love Rob.
Was that before school?
Oh, yes, sir. Like 6th, 7th, 8th grade.
Yeah.
We go down there for 3 weeks, and I think we all vowed that we weren't going to go there, and then we all ended up there. So
that is the weirdest place, man. It's crazy, crazy place. Well, tell us some of the mistakes you made as a salesperson when you were starting out. Some of the things that you would say, don't do this.
Don't leave an email or a text after 5 p.m.
Okay.
And, I say that and chuckle. And that's why, being at a company as long as I have, it's been a curse and a blessing, blessing being that, we do awesome things, save lives every day. But a curse being I see more deaths than I see lives saved, I've seen great people leave bosses and not jobs. And those are the things that really haunt me is I hate losing great people. And, my CEO would say, why do they leave, Bill, and then want to come back? And I was like, well, Rick, they leave people. They don't leave jobs. And so, leaving emails and texts is kind of after 5 o'clock is not bode well for me.
What does that mean? Give me an example.
I'd be president of one of our divisions if I didn't leave text and emails after 5 o'clock.
Because you're what? Angry?
Yeah, emails terse. It's emotional first, rational second. I recommend if you write an email, read it first, read it to your spouse, read it to your best friend before hitting send.
Yeah.
I would recommend don't CC everybody and their grandmother. And I've been known to do both. So now I barely turn on my computer. So I'm an old school guy. And my new manager came on board. He goes, how can I help you? And I was like, give me a secretary because I don't do this, that well. He goes, hey, man, I need you to enter the calls. I said, I was crystal clear when you asked me what I did. So, but anyway, I like peer-to-peer selling I think it's the best way to sell as far as, mistakes I've made in the past. Selling capital equipment, I think the common mistake is not trusting what you've done and what you said to make an impact, right? Because when people buy capital equipment, they don't buy it every other month. They buy it every 7 to 8 years, right? So they only meet about it maybe twice or 3 times a year. So you got to hope that what you did made an impact. And being a complex sale, you just don't rely on one person. You got to rely on several people that are making the decision.
So you've hired a pretty good amount of people in your time, and you'll hire more. What are you looking for when you get contacted or you get a resume? How do you hire people?
I think the old cliche is, the best predictor of future performance is past performance, right? I like hiring people that I know that from somebody else. It's hard finding somebody that you don't know about. I think that's a Southern thing that I tend to lean on. I tend to go with people that are recommended by other people, and I'm very selective in that regard. So I'm not in a hiring position now, thank goodness. They asked me if I wanted to go for a role, and when you're managing people, you're managing their problems and their business problems and their personal problems. So I got enough on my plate.
So what would you like to hear from them when they interview for the first time? What are you looking for?
The big thing with me, and it's kind of an overused word with me, I think, is passion. I'm very passionate about what we do, and at the end of the day, if you're not passionate about saving lives, then I don't know how you get up in the morning. And that's I've been offered other jobs in other industries and whatnot, and a lot more money here and there, but I wake up every day knowing that I'm doing something for somebody else that may not see me.
So just to paraphrase that, you want to hear that someone's got some passion about what it is that y'all are selling.
Correct.
Right. And we talk about that because, you had the passion because of your experience in college. Other people might have the passion because they like hunting and fishing, or they like computers, or they like whatever they like, but they want to get into something that's of interest to them that they can then sell. Right. And be in business.
Right. And if you can sell our stuff. It's all about hustle, and but sales is not natural. I think it's something that you have to work on all the time. One thing I learned at Citadel is you show me a satisfied person, I'll show you a failure, right? And that haunted me too. But at the same time, there's a lot of fact in that statement.
Yeah, I agree. I think every day you're either moving, you're either inching forward or you're slipping backward. Right. And if you've quote unquote made it, that's one of your most dangerous times, right? Because then you start slipping backward. Right. Because you think you're already there, and there's no there. Yeah,
euphoria is what we call that.
So I love to talk about head trash. Do you know when I say head trash, what I mean?
Things, self-doubt.
Yeah, self-doubt. Things like, I'm too old to start this business, or I'm too young to start this business, or I've got too much education to do this, or I don't have enough education. Right. And I just find it fascinating how we all have this head trash that's been given to us by the people we grew up with, maybe our parents, maybe the church we went to, maybe our school, maybe what we watched on television. Who knows where we hear these things, but we start to believe them. Right. And I wonder if you had any head trash that you had recognized so far that you said, no, I used to believe this, but it's not true.
Well, a lot of times, grass looks greener. Yeah. And, maybe I've had people say you need to go into software sales and, you could kill it, Bill. And the thing about that with me is I would always be looking over my shoulder for a better widget, right? Yeah. Or somebody that could put, semicolon, smiley face, semicolon, and leapfrog my technology. As far as head trash for me is again, trusting what you've done. And that, because the universe is so big out there, what you can capture is, I would rather fill the funnel with as much stuff as I have. And that, we use this, Marcus used to use this word all the time with the band, organic. But the best, to me, the close is kind of anticlimactic to what I did at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
When I get that beginning, I enter them in the funnel. I know the close is inevitable.
Yeah.
And the more people I put into the funnel, these things will just trickle out and eventually start flowing out.
Yeah.
And so I think the head trash is, sitting on your hands and not, like, I write thank you notes a lot,
Yeah.
right? And little things like that make you different in the capital world.
Yeah.
So, because you're not there every day, and the ones that are every day are, they just
Right.
they bug them to death, and
Right.
they don't want them there. So,
Right. Well, that's a great head trash. That's great head trash. Again, I see that a lot where people, they're looking for some magic potion or some magic thing that they can think of or do to make the sales easier. And really what they got to do is find the prospects that are interested, stick them in the pipeline, start the process.
Right.
Just do that every day.
right.
You're going to be a great salesperson. Okay. What's your favorite word?
Faith,
Faith.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
primarily because it's been redefined as a belief in something that has no proof, and my faith is evidence based in what I sell or what I believe, and I'm willing to debate that with anybody.
Great. Well, you've done so well since the Citadel days in graduated in 93.
Yes, sir.
If I would have met you, we know each other a lot better.
Oh, yeah,
Because I would have hired you in a second. Any of Greer's friends. But you've done great, and what you're selling is in fact saving lives. And I think that's wonderful. And I hope you keep doing it for a long time.
It's been fun. It's having my friends that have come in and done so well is, my best friend just got to be president of our division.
Nice.
I mean, this guy, I call him a ditch kid done good. He started grew up in a trailer, didn't go to college, ran a Hardee's when he was 18 years old. And my senior VP said, bring me great people. And man, this guy is just shot to the moon. I
That's
just
strong.
couldn't
That's
be more
great.
proud. And those are the things that make me proud, is seeing other people succeed that you had a part of. So,
Good. Well, we here at the Noob School appreciate you. Glad you came today.
I appreciate it.
Maybe you come back sometime.
Yes,
Come
sir.
back and see us again.
would love to.
All right.
Now, how did you know Archie? How did you meet Archie?
Arch, of course, he's a Citadel grad. He's been on the podcast.
Okay.
And Sunland was a customer of our Foxfire company.
Okay.
Our Foxfire company makes software for warehousing.
Oh, yeah.
And Arch was a great customer, and that's how I got to know him.
Okay. He's done really well.
And his wife, Sarah,
Yeah.
used to work for DataStream back in the day.
Oh, wow.
So she was one of our inside salespeople.
Now, you know who her father-in-law was.
Yeah, Pappas.
Ike Pappas.
Yeah, Ike Pappas.
Yeah, I love Alex, her brother, too. He's
Yeah,
a
I
great
don't
guy.
know him, but I remember watching some footage of Ike Pappas, who was on the CBS Evening News, I guess.
Yeah, he was on 60 Minutes. I mean, when they perp walked Oswald before Ruby shot him, he said, "Did you shoot the president?" That's
was the
his
guy?
father-in-law. Yeah,
That's pretty cool. Well, it's a small world. It's
Sure
a small
is.
world. But thanks for coming, and we'd like to have you back sometime. And again, appreciate what you do.
I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right.